Hi, this is David Christian from the Modern Martial Artist. We have a lot of stuff to cover today. I put timestamps this time, so decide what you want to hear me rant about. If it's everything, just relax. If not, then you could go to the specific timestamp and hear what you want to hear talked about. We're going to talk about UFC 217, specifically GSP versus Bisping, and of course TJ versus Cody, which was both of those amazing, phenomenal fights. I didn't mean to, but I ended up ranting about training as a martial artist getting older, so that's a good chunk of this too. And I want to talk about one of my favorite movies, Unleashed, from 2005, starring Jet Li. I want to, in these podcasts, start talking about great martial arts films as well. And last thing before we get started, I'm looking to turn my channel into more martial arts hub, encompassing a lot of different kinds of styles. So I'm looking for help with that. If you guys know a style that you're an expert at, that you think you have a lot to say about, if you could produce a 30-second to 2-minute video to send to my email, which I'm going to link below, and prove to me that you are able to talk about, you know your stuff, and you're passionate about it, then maybe that could be a feature on the channel overall. Not really looking for boxing or MMA per se, although if your specialty is grappling and or if your specialty is like Taekwondo or whatever it may be, and there's aspects of that someone's using in MMA, then that would absolutely be appropriate. So send that to me if you're interested. And without any further ado, let's get started. So I was massively impressed with how far GSP's striking has come. The difference is night and day. These last years, he must have put in so much practice with Freddie Roach and so much hard work into it, and it's still blended very well with the threat of takedowns. This time, he did a lot of stuff differently. He showed a massive amount of improvement. So his level changes this time around didn't just facilitate a feint for his jabs. This time he would level change and very smoothly transition to shifting hooks or crosses to lead hooks. He even managed to kind of use some in and out footwork and then smoothly transition into wheel kicks, or I think he threw a spinning back kick in there. He definitely threw a wheel kick. I was just massively impressed with his quality of movement. When you watched him, there was no jerkiness. It was just one smooth motion in between everything. Not just his striking, but there was just this smooth rhythm without any stops or jerks that makes it it allows you to move your momentum better. And it allows, because if you stop and jerk all the time, and it just like stop, that sounded wrong. If you're stopping and jerking all the time, but if your movement's like jerky and erratic, you're not going to be able to load much weight into your movement. It's the fighters that can transition their footwork without stopping and then just flow and take that momentum and then bring it into a strike. He was able to do that so well while threatening takedowns the entire fight. I was just massively impressed with him. That hook punch at the end was pretty sick. The lead hook that he knocked Bisping down, I was impressed with that. Wonderful structure, a lot of power, especially for, if I remember correctly, he had a very wide stance and he still managed to get a lot of weight transfer going, but more than anything, just really good structure, just tight. Everything was at the correct angle, shoulder aligned with elbow, just bringing it through, hips driving it, just a massive increase in his striking power. He even stood Bisping up, which impressed me. He felt that he wasn't ready to be, he had him on the ground, and rather than just ground and pound, I guess he felt that he wasn't done yet and that the whole round was just going to be him lying on top of him. Maybe he felt he wanted to show off his striking since there'd been such a massive improvement. Maybe he just really wanted to go for a finish, but he stood him up and wore him down more until he felt he was ready. And hats off to Bisping for being such a warrior and never giving up and going at it his hardest. I mean, you wouldn't really expect anything less than the guy. I guess he's got one fight left, is what he's saying. 1 or 2 fights left. He's an entertaining fighter. I'm not one to take shit talking very seriously. So, but I take it more like entertainment value. So he's been entertaining, and he's been fun to watch. I don't think anyone's asking for a rematch between him and GSP. So I think the best thing for him now is to just fight at home, where all his fans are, and just go out either in a blaze of glory, or at least as like he did this time as a warrior, just toughing it out the entire time. So yeah, hats off to both of them. Amazing fight. I don't really have anything else to say about it. There was something GSP did, I wasn't sure if it was intentional or not, that I thought was pretty interesting. He got a single leg, he got a hold of it, and Bisping started to grab the cage, and then he wasn't going down. And GSP always has been great at, when you start trying to struggle against him, he adjusts the momentum. So he'll switch what kind of hold he's doing. He'll switch which direction he's turning you in. He's great at the single leg and just like turning you at the angle you don't want to be turned at, and then adjusting if you try to like posture up or if you try to sink low or whatever you do, he's going to use that movement against you. He did something different this time. I wasn't sure if it was on purpose. He took one of his legs, and it's like he need Bisping's support leg. So he, rather than sweep the leg, which you see in Muay Thai a lot, when you've got a hold of the leg, rather than sweep the leg, he kind of came down on his knee, but he bumped Bisping's leg out from under him. And I'm very interested if he did that on purpose or not, because I watched the clip a couple times and I couldn't tell for sure. But yeah, so that being said, amazing fight. I'm looking forward to seeing GSP fight again. He has returned. He's even better than before. I hope he goes down a weight class because he looked kind of slow. And my calf just started cramping for some reason, so that's fun. Hold on one sec. Man, I'm getting old. How are you guys doing with your training? The people who are 30 or over like me. What do you find? How do you find aging has affected you? Because for me, I feel like I'm still as fast as I have been, or maybe I just haven't noticed I've slowed down. I feel like my technique is a million times better, and so my cardio, I don't know if my cardio is better or not, as far as lung capacity and energy, but because I've been working so long on these techniques, they come to my body naturally now. So I'm not gassing. The one thing that getting older has done is my body just does not recover near as fast anymore. I don't know if it's I don't know much about aging. I know hormones decrease that could help you recover, all that kind of thing. I know that I've been getting a lot more muscle cramps lately, and I know that injuries take forever. I remember when I was a teenager, I could go on the heavy bag with no gloves, no shin pads or anything. I could spar, no shin pads. You get all these bruises. I could sprain an ankle. It seems like everything would heal within a couple days to a week. Now, if I sprain something, it's like, well, that's gonna hurt for a month. And then some things, so you don't know which ones. I've injured pretty much every part of my body, but some injuries just don't go away. Not like it's a constant pain, but you get it once, and then it'll resurface as kind of a happy little surprise every couple months. Just to remind you what a dumbass you were for trying that one thing. I have a gymnastics background as well as a martial arts background. And so when I moved to LA, I kind of wanted to get into tricking, which if you don't know what tricking is, it's really cool. It's where you take fancy kicks and kind of combine them with gymnastics. And whereas gymnastics is everything kind of moving straight forward in a line, and all the twisting motion is mainly done in the air, give or take. Tricking is all about combining martial arts kicks with different forms of gymnastics. So there's a lot of movements that were kind of in between the two So they were kind of easy, but I kind of wasn't used to them. And every time I've tried that, every time I've tried to learn tricking, I injure myself somehow. I'll get the movement pretty quickly. Maybe that's one of the problems. Is I get it's like a very high impact movement. You know, a lot of times you're landing on one foot, one leg. So I'll get the movement quickly, but the landing is what I'll mess up because you need to spin out of it. You know, martial arts, you transition into another move or you know in out, know how to do that. Gymnastics, you could transition, but it's always in the same direction. You know, forward, back, that kind of thing. Or you stick, which is just like you kind of sit down and squat and then you stop as quickly as possible. So the whole spinning through the air 3 times at this weird ass angle and then landing on one foot, I just keep injuring myself. So I had to give that up. So if you're young, you're listening to this, learn this now. Learn all this stuff now so that when you're past your 30s, you have that movement pattern in your head. I could still do all the stuff I learned before fine. I just don't have the healing capacity anymore to mess up a bunch of times. So mess up now, I guess is what I'm saying. Don't do anything too reckless. I'm not telling you to go like try a triple backflip off a building or some stupid thing. So don't think I'm telling you that. But with a professional, with some people who know what they're doing, everything you want to learn it now while you're young and your body can heal. Because you could still get better and you could still have fun as an athlete, but the amount of new stuff you're able to learn is just so limited. Which is why steroids is such an unfair advantage in competition. And don't take offense if you're doing steroids. That's totally your choice, and I don't care if you're doing steroids or not. I don't do them myself because of the health implications later in life. I'm thinking ahead right now. If there was no heart problems or hormone problems or stuff that would affect me later in life, like all these old wrestlers killing over now, which is really sad, you know. If there was none of that stuff, I'd be on steroids like tomorrow. I'd be on steroids tomorrow if there was no ill effects. Because what you get is recovery. More so for your muscles. Your joints are, like, there's problems with people's muscles overtaking their joints on steroids, and then their muscles are bearing the load, but then the joint, you know, snaps or whatever. So that's joints and tendons. But yeah, I'd be on steroids tomorrow for the how often you could train. I've only been able to ever train, as a young man, I could weightlift 2 to 3 times a week, and then I could do martial arts 2 to 3 times a week on top of that. And that's it. If I push my body anywhere past that, I'm just an asshole the next day. And I'm tired and I'm cranky and everything's sore and it's I can't think, I get brain fog. So that's always been my capacity, or that was my capacity. Nowadays I could work out hard 3 times a week, like hour-long workout sessions, and I need to stretch for like a good 15 to half an hour before. But with steroids, you could just train like 6-7 days a week, and the neural connections you're building up for all those movements, all those movement patterns. I don't know if you guys watch Elliot Hulse. That he's really hit or miss to me, but I really love some of the stuff he says, and I agree with a good deal of it. And I think most of the time he knows his shit. Which, you know, he's self-conscious enough that I think he'd approve of that, to where, like, yeah, I don't want you to just take everything I say at face value. You know, one of those guys. I respect him a lot, and a lot of his videos have helped me progress as an athlete. So if you haven't looked it up, look up Elliot Hulse Strength channel. You know, but that's an example of a guy who is clearly on steroids, but lives, and I think he's admitted it before, so that's not just me being an asshole, but he lives in as healthy, you know, a style and healthy a way as possible that you can with it. And in his defense, has massively helped his career, and he's making a living off of it, so maybe for him it's worth those sacrifices. But one of the things he said is that it takes 300 to 500 repetitions for your body to build a movement. but it takes 3,000 to 5,000 repetitions for your body to learn a new movement. So, I mean, and all you people who've learned multiple styles of martial arts know exactly how frustrating that can be. For, you know, for me, going from Kempo to Taekwondo to JKD, and then learning some boxing, and then learning some Muay Thai, and you know, grappling intertwined in there, starting from a Kempo school at a young age. And everyone thinks they know the right way, and you end up either learning a lot of different movement patterns, or you end up like replacing old ones, and it's so much harder to do the latter. So yeah, look, comment below how you deal with the aging aspect. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. And if you're a young man or a young woman, learn what you want to learn now. Even if you think you're not sure, if you're thinking of learning how to go do a backflip, you know, learn it now while you're young. Don't try to learn the movement past your 30s, because all of a sudden, if you come down a little wrong, you know, then your ankle hurts the next day, and then you're discouraged. Where I'm not talking like you come down on your head, that means you're with a bad coach. But if you come down, you know, with your weight too far forward or too far back, or you fall on your ass, or whatever the case may be, you want to be able to walk that off. And you can't past a certain age. Even with steroids, it gets to a point where you can't past a certain age, and your body's dependent on steroids just to be normal, you know. So even though it's your choice with steroids and everything, don't think I'm advocating it. There are benefits, there are definitely costs. I mentioned that at the beginning. But yeah, moving on. TJ versus Cody. That was exactly what I talked about last time. That's exactly what I wanted to see. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I'm going to brag. I predicted the shit out of that fight. I predicted exactly... I said last time that it would be hard for TJ to deal with Cody's very tight hook punches, even with him switching angles, because what Cody likes to do is, I like to call it T-Rex punches, where you keep your elbows as close as you can to your body. And then what he does is he keeps his head wide open, but he steps side to side. So he'll come forward at you to cut you off, and then he'll keep the angle he comes in so tight with those T-Rex punches with the elbow in really close. And that's great structurally too, because it's so tight, your body's in a very good structure to transmit weight. And I said that that's what would be difficult for TJ, but I said that TJ's guard would save him being so defensively responsible. If you watch the fight, if you watch those exchanges in slow motion, I think it had to be over 10 times that TJ's excellent defensive responsibility completely saved him. It was a combination of that and the fact he changes angles nearly every punch. You've never seen a guy change angles so much as TJ Dillashaw, which I talked about a couple ways he does that in my breakdown of him. So yeah, it was a great fight. And I also said that even if one of them got knocked out in the first 10 seconds, you would never be able to convince me that they weren't insanely evenly matched. And then TJ nearly got knocked out through one of those tight hooks, and then came back to win the second one. I said that as far as Cody goes, TJ was going to be a problem, because Cody is used to cutting people off as they come in. And that's why he was so effective against Cruz. When Cruz comes in, he comes in at an angle with a wide shot. He turns his head and he tries to be, body movement as defensively as possible. But he's coming in at a wide angle, kind of strafing, kind of trying to nip you at an angle. And Cody comes in to close that angle. He comes in tight with those short punches. So against Cruz, that's a perfect style for him. TJ is much different than Dominic Cruz, even though people keep trying to say that they're the same. They have similar aspects, but the main difference is that TJ changes angles and then comes at you straight forward and is defensively responsible, by the way, in case I haven't mentioned that yet. So he'll change angles, come at you with a tight, well-structured punch with his guard up. Change angles again, come at you with a tight, well-structured strike. He changes angles to set up his moves as opposed to changing angles while moving, which is easier to cut off. Obviously, he does both at different times, but it's just kind of a stylistic difference. And I said that proved difficult for Cody. And in that last exchange, as well as a bunch of exchanges leading up to it, you will see a bunch of near misses where Cody would have connected beautifully, but TJ changed the angle again before he struck. So, and that's what ended up being his downfall too, is TJ came in with a rebound step and then added on, I think, an extra shuffle even to that. And you'll see a punch that would have knocked out TJ, probably even with his guard up, just kind of fly by a couple inches where TJ was a millisecond ago. So, what an incredible fight for TJ to come back after nearly getting knocked out, and still get in there and get it done. And Cody, of course, gave a great performance, coming back after he had a messed up back. So overall, yeah, very, very impressed with that fight as well. I don't know if there's anything else I can say about it, besides that's exactly what I was looking for. It was very entertaining. All the fights were really good. The only other thing I can say is I felt bad for Wonderboy, who was clearly winning the fight and wanted a knockout reel. He wanted to prove to the fans he deserved a third title shot. But it's like, even if you'd knock the guy out with some kind of epic triple flip tricking move, you know, even if you did like a Showtime, if you jumped off the cage, did a front flip, and then axe kicked down on his head, you're still not getting a rematch at this point. Alright, so the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is one of my favorite martial arts movies. And that's something I'm going to start doing more frequently too, I feel like. Because media is a big part of martial arts. We have the UFC now, where it's basically like the action you used to get only in movies. You could see crazy shit like that in the UFC. So movies have had to kind of step it up and everything. But this movie really holds up. In so many ways, it's ridiculous. If you haven't seen it, it's called Unleashed in America, and it's called Danny the Dog a lot of other places. It has Jet Li, Morgan Freeman, and Bob Hoskins. And the premise is that there's this guy who was taken as a kid and raised like an animal, like a dog, by this kind of crime lord. And this guy who takes bets, or who he's like a shitty landlord. He's like a slumlord, right? Or he's like a shady lender who wants like a bunch of interest back. And so he raises Danny, Jet Li, from the time he's a kid, and he raises this kid in a cage. And he like feeds him out of his hand. He gives him like rations. He doesn't teach him how to read, doesn't teach him how to write. And it's messed up. He uses him as like his weapon. All he does is, this guy trains all day, every day to fight. And to fight with no set of rules. So like the most brutal, hair-grabbing, eye-gouging, eye-poking, knee-snapping, every dirty trick you could think of. That's this kid's whole life. And I think Jet Li was supposed to still be a teenager in the movie. He looks much older in it, but he does a great job pulling it off. I didn't know he could act so insanely well. And before I get into that, though, let me talk about the premise of this movie a little bit more. So, beyond all this, Bob Hoskins, the crime lord, he uses Jet Li, Danny, to collect money he's owed. So he'll go to, like, shake down, is that the correct term? I don't know, I'm not very gangsta, I guess. But he goes to shake down these guys who owe him money or who he thinks owe him a little bit more money. And Jet Li's in a leash. Get it? Unleashed. And whenever Bob Hoskins takes off the leash, that's the cue for Jet Li to just attack and go batshit crazy. And the movie itself, it's dated a little bit. It's aged a little bit. To where some of the stuff is very wiry 90s. Some of the shots, like dramatic jump shots, dramatic tilting of the camera, that kind of thing. But for the most part, what this premise does is a lot. But the first thing it does is it allows Jet Li to develop, and the choreographers to develop, an entirely new style based upon the character, what they represent in their past. And I think that's so essential and crucial to any good martial arts movie. In the same way styles make fights, styles make martial arts movies. If you're watching everyone have the same techniques and the same moves, it's really, really boring. Unless you're setting up some kind of battle at the end where it's like, we were trained under the same master, and now we must fight each other, but we are brothers, Unless you're doing that, and otherwise it's just boring. That's why Ip Man, the fight in Ip Man is so good when it's traditional karate style versus Wing Chun. They pulled that off absolutely masterfully. And it's the same here. You get to see the most brutal kind of street fighting thing mixed with the athleticism of Jet Li and a few fancy kicks. And it's absolutely wonderfully done. Aside from a few things here or there, incredible action. So that's the first thing the movie has, is a good premise which drives the style and drives the kind of action we have. And then the second thing it does is it drives the character development. So Jet Li has been nothing but a dog his entire life, treated but nothing as a dog who's sent to attack people. He's had no semblance of kindness, and he expects no kindness, and he doesn't show mercy to anyone else. And so one day he runs into Morgan Freeman, who's playing like a blind guy. Some of the stuff is kind of corny, but it's done so well you don't really notice. He runs across him when he's tuning pianos, and Morgan Freeman is kind of the first guy to ever show him kindness. And he has Jet Li sit down, and he teaches him like a few notes, and they establish, like, sadly, what is probably the closest bond that Jet Li playing Danny that Danny has ever had in his life up until that point, since he was taken as a kid. So that's the only connection, the only moment of kindness he's had in years. And it distracts him so much that he doesn't come in and help his boss, and his boss gets kind of beat up. So what ends up happening is that so Bob Hoskins gets attacked in his car when Danny's there, and Danny thinks he's dead. Jet Li thinks that the crime lord is dead, and so he escapes, and the only place he could think to go is to this one guy, this blind piano tuner, who's ever shown him any kind of kindness. And so from there, the movie takes a turn and just turns into this guy who's been kind of abused his whole life, learning normal human interactions. And it's just as interesting as the fight scene. And this is from someone who doesn't like dramas, doesn't like the Oscar award-winning kind of stuff. A lot of the time. Sometimes I can, but a lot of the times I just try to avoid drama. If that's all it is, I like it coupled with action or comedy or that kind of thing. But it's done so insanely well, and it's kind of charming and kind of funny. The blind pianist, Morgan Freeman, he's got like a stepdaughter that and he brings Jet Li in to live with them, the stepdaughter and him. And it's just Jet Li recovering from his kind of abusive childhood and learning how to function as a person. And then, of course, spoilers, the crime lord Hoskins isn't really dead. So then you have this inner battle of, what do I use my violence for? because Jet Li's this incredible weapon, but he doesn't want to hurt people. But when is it actually appropriate to hurt people? When you're defending yourself, when you're defending others, and then how far do you take it? It turns out that Hoskins has done a lot more shitty stuff to him than even he realizes, and he has a choice at the end about whether or not he wants to take revenge, or just kind of let him live, let the authorities deal with it, kind of a thing. It's this whole inner battle thing. It's all very well done. Like I said, can be a little cheesy at times, maybe, but it's done so well you don't really notice it. The fight scenes are awesome. Once again, there's one fight scene that pisses me off, and it looks kind of cheesy. When he's fighting like these 5 guys, they all have different kinds of weapons, and it's like a Coliseum Gladiator thing, but it's like an underground fight club, whatever the hell bullshit. I don't like that fight too much. The rest of it is really great. Character development is unbelievable. I saw it in theaters when I was 18, and I'm not going to go too into it, but I had like a shitty childhood, like nowhere to where I wasn't like locked in a cage or anything and made to fight people. So don't say don't think I'm saying I had it as bad as this guy, but I was in bad situations, surrounded by a bunch of drug addicts or ex-drug addicts and just shitty people in general. And when you're treated of less value than you should be, when you're treated like you're not worth anything, and then you see a movie about someone who recovers, and it's a martial arts movie with a bunch of fight scenes, I don't know. At that age, it kind of just gave me hope. So maybe I like it too much because I felt like it fit my circumstances a little bit too much, but I don't think I'm wrong here. I think this is an incredible movie that all you guys would really like. Besides that, yeah, there's nothing else to really say about it. Watch the movie. It's wonderful. It's an awesome movie. And recommend any movies that you'd like me to review or that you think I haven't seen. And we could get a little bit more into that because I think that'd be kind of fun. You guys kind of liked me talking about Ippo last time, so I figured I'd talk about this a little bit more. And don't worry, I'll break down more Ippo moves. I think there's only like one I haven't, which is the smash. I think I'll make a video actually about all the moves and their real life moves from Ippo would be kind of cool too. Before that though, I have Hagler coming out this weekend. I have well, after that you're just gonna have to wait and see, but you guys will like it. You'll be pleasantly surprised. So that's it for this podcast. I said at the beginning, but I'm going to remind you guys again, if you want to use the viewership my channel has to progress your career or take a percentage, or just because you want to and want to make videos about your specific art style, I'm most looking for grappling, any kind of grappling or wrestling matches. Maybe college wrestling or Olympic wrestling would be really cool. Or Olympic Taekwondo or fencing or any of that stuff. If you could prove to me that you've already made videos or that you can make videos and then send them to me at the mmarts@gmail, then that'd be awesome, and we could get into business. We could make it like a martial arts hub, and it doesn't need to be just breakdown videos. It could be you guys, just you and your buddy, just in front of a camera too. As long as you know your shit, as long as you know what you're talking about, and you could present it in an entertaining way, then yeah, I want to see your stuff. If you send it in, regardless, even if I'm sorry, it's not what I'm looking for, I'll still give you a free copy of my ebook. That's something, I guess. and a big thank you in one of the podcasts. I'll still send people your way too, just for putting in the time and effort to do that, because that takes a lot of balls to do something you've never done before and then put yourself out there. A lot of times you're going to fail doing that too. I know that better than anyone. But you got to keep putting out your stuff and kind of see where you have success and what sticks. So if this is something you want to try and you think it could have success and could stick, I'm not promising you anything besides a shout out and an ebook. But I mean, go for it. What's the worst that could happen? So yeah, email me if you're interested in that. Hagler's next. Hope you guys are having an awesome day, and I will catch you later. Happy training.